Hello and welcome back. This is The Lost Adventure, and today we're going to be going over CM8, The Endless Stair. Now, this adventure was designed by a guy named Ed Greenwood. Don't know if you've ever heard of him. He didn't create anything too important, some realm called the Forgotten Realms. Not a big deal. And this adventure was written in 1987. It was designed for 4 to 6 characters of levels 15 to 20, and for my listeners that are 5th edition players, that generally correlates to about levels 12 through 15. Now, this adventure is a little bit odd. If you just do it based on the set encounters, it's actually pretty boring. It's only going to consist of 3 different areas, and it's almost like a small treasure hunt. However, it's supposed to be run with the DM controlling 2 specific NPCs who are thinking independently of each other that are, sort of the antagonists or the opponents of the PCs throughout the entire module. Now, when I was doing this thing that I like to refer to as research, I observed that no one's done a video review on this one, and I was actually slightly worried this was going to be really complicated. But it's not. It's not really that complicated at all. The entire adventure is modular, sort of modular. You can place it in any world you want to. It all begins when the players end up being at an inn. And from there, the players will leave the inn following an investigation, and they'll end up going to a tomb, and then they'll eventually get to the endless stair itself. Now, you're going to have to know the background for this adventure before you start it. There's like 5 pages of background and NPC history that you need to read. It's in the book, but I'm just going to give you the short rundown of it. So one day, apparently 20 years in the past, there was this great mage named Cheromar. Cheromar had 4 apprentices, in which case, of those 4, 2 are really the only ones you really need to know about. One's named Lethkun, and the other one's named Zalazel. The other 2, Althorn and Shalene, well, they went off on their own merry way and started a family and all the other fun stuff. The other 2, the first 2 I named, they're dicks. They're evil and they have their own ideas. When Cheromar died, his friend of his, or sort of a friend, he made a deal with this guy. This guy showed up. He buries his buddy, the Cheromar, sets up his tomb and everything else like that, and gave some gifts to his apprentices and sent them on their own way. But he did not give them everything, so 2 of his apprentices, Lethkun and Zelazel, I will mess that up throughout this entire video. They want more. They want even more access to all the ancient treasures that their master used to have. And this is where you have to sort of read up on these NPCs, specifically Lethkun and Zelazel, because they're going to constantly interfere with the players as they go through this adventure. Lethkun is a 24th level chaotic wizard. He has a few spells. It has it all in here. He apparently looks like he's a man in his middle ages, long hair going white at the temples. Otherwise, his hair is jet black long and he is bearded with glittering red eyes. Okay, whatever. Glittering red eyes. That's perfectly normal. Now, Lethkun, he has a whole series of spells that you need to read to figure out what else he can do. But one of his biggest things that I've observed is he has 12 gargoyles under his control. Zelazel, who is the other crappy apprentice, is a 22nd level wizard. And another thing to keep in mind is Zelazel and Lethkun, they're not working together. They're actually in competition with each other. However, they don't know all the traps set up by their master and his master's buddy that they set up at the tomb. So what they're going to do is they're going to Lethkun's going to try and interfere with the players on the way to the first tomb and possibly on the way to the stairs. Same thing with Zelazel. He'll mess with the players while they're going to the tomb and before they get to the stairs. But once the players get to the stairs, both of these guys are going to let them go through all the different funny special effects and traps on the stairs and follow them up afterwards. Zelazel has his own series of little minions he'll use to bother the players too. He has some bats, there's some trained war dogs he has, and he has a single bone golem that he will use against the players should he need to. Now, of the other 2 apprentices, Althorn and Shalene, Well, Althorn ends up getting killed. His body shows up at the end, which causes the whole investigation to start. And Shalene, she can be brought in by the DM if necessary. She can either assist the PCs or actually become a third opponent if they need to have another opponent, because she's so angry that her husband, Althun, has been murked. So the beginning of the adventure starts off in this area called Dalezun's Rest, where a group of hunters wind up bringing in a body. Where then they'll ask everybody in the end, hey, does anybody recognize this dead guy we found by the Learning Stone? In which case one person will recognize him. And that guy will end up exclaiming, oh, shoot, that's Ulthor, the old wizard's apprentice. In which there'll be some conversation about how they believe the wizard was buried in the area, but nobody can find the tomb. And there'll also be some points of reference and talking about how the Learning Stone, where this body was found, is one of the weird locations in the area. But also, there's another weird location called the Endless Stair, which is a magical set of stairs that goes nowhere into the sky. Now, unbeknownst to the players, one of the individuals inside of the inn at this time is actually Lethkun in disguise. He's pretending to be a scribe or a bodyguard for one of the other people inside there. As they figure out who this guy is, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we found a wizard out here dead beside the Learning Stone. The guy that actually identified him is going to be like, hey, I need to use the Jakes, which, if no one knows what the Jakes are, it's a bathroom. So he leaves to go use the bathroom, and after a little while, as people are continuing to talk inside the inn about the body, the Learning Stone, the Endless Stairs, someone will find his body in the bathroom. He's been killed by apparently a magic missile, which will make everybody a little, they'll be a little suspicious of the player characters because they're one of the few strangers in here, and especially if any of the player characters is a wizard, they'll definitely be suspicious, in which case they'll end up being pressured into investigating the death because they think the woodcutter who identified Ulthorn, his death is connected to Ulthorn's death. So it's the part where they get pressured into investigating both deaths. They end up going to the Learning Stone, which is actually an old tomb. It's a tomb for an old baron. It's really not that big. It's got like 15 locations in it, but on the way, they're going to have some minor encounters. But Lethkun in his disguise, along with quite a few of the townspeople, or the village people, are going to follow the players because they also want to try and figure out what's going on. So it's almost like the village or the town or the inn has made a posse to investigate these deaths, which that sort of makes sense, I guess. Now, while they're traveling on this, you're supposed to remember that Lethkun's going to be trying to kill the PCs, along with Zelozel. Though if I'm reading it right, Lethkun will be aiming more for the PCs, while Zelozel will be trying to kill off some of the townspeople on the way. Which sort of makes sense, because, Lethkun actually has gargoyles under his command, while Zelozel is running around here with some bats and some random dogs. So anyways, they will get to the Learning Stone and figure out that there is a doorway in the Learning Stone. It's this giant pillar. That's what they call the Learning Stone. And there's now a doorway in there, in which case every single person there, the locals, will advise that that door is not usually there. The players will go into this doorway and they'll end up figuring it's like a sort of elevator. It lifts them up magically into this tomb that's got 15 separate areas. Now, while they're in here, there's a set of creatures called prying eyes that follow them everywhere. These are just some small floating creatures that inquisitively float around the PCs as they wander around. And they're like armor class 7 or 3, depending on whether or not you use a magical attack or a non-magical attack against them. And should a physical attack be used against them, there's a chance that the players may get paralyzed for 1 to 4 rounds. But other than that, these things are more of an annoyance, and they're not aggressive. They're not going to attack the PCs at all. So anyways, back to the tomb. The most important room is actually going to be the room the players walk into right after they get out of the elevator. Inside of room 2, they're going to find a skeleton of an adventurer who died here long ago. And on that skeleton, they'll find... there's actually quite a few things of interest. There's a couple scrolls. There's a potion of invisibility that can last for 61 turns. And there's also a scrap of paper found in this person's book, who apparently used to be a mage. This scrap of paper actually leads to the endless stair. Because as the players go through here, they'll end up figuring out this tomb was actually originally the burial place of some sort of duke or baron in the past. Long ago past, too, as in nobody remembers who the heck this is. And all the treasures of this noble person have already been looted by previous adventurers. We'll call them adventurers. Now, the Cheramar's buddy did put like a large stone block that could be mistaken for like a tomb for the Cheramar inside of here. However, should they touch it, a deep male voice will speak from it, and it'll say, "The Cheramar rests not here, but has been laid to rest where in life he strove, and where death he is safe from those who would rob and destroy. If you seek the power that was his, and have knowledge enough to take and leave what is right, seek the endless stair." Thus, with the combination of the scrap of paper they found off the dead wizard and the announcement from the voice coming from what looks like a tomb, the players will be led in the direction of the endless stair. Now, there's a bunch of other encounters inside of here. Not really encounters, they're just separate locations. There's one where there's this floating head that talks to you about the past of this dead noble. However, it's not really that smart. And if the players end up trying to destroy it, it explodes and kills everybody inside the room. Fun stuff like that. There's some traps, but this tomb is not really that interesting. And after that, the players are off to the endless stair itself, following the map, which is just a scrap of piece of paper, so you're going to have to figure out some things in between on the way. You also have, the two apprentices messing with the players the entire time. They'll reach the endless stair. Now, the endless stair is just a set of magical, blocks going up into the sky with what appears to be no ending. There's 300 steps, and each step is 1 foot up from the other one. So it's 300 feet. There's no railings. There's nothing to prevent anybody from falling down. My issue with this is, what would stop a PC from flying up to the top? Doesn't appear to be anything that stops a player from flying to the top. However, the players are supposed to go up the steps. If they fall off the steps, they'll end up taking a series of damage equal to its normal falling damage for every 10 feet they fall. And certain steps have an effect when the players step on them. The 9th step creates a force, a shimmering curtain of force that causes 1 to 6 points of damage to a player that goes through it. The 23rd, a pair of prying eyes, the exact same things that were bothering and stalking the players in the last tomb, will rise from this step as it's reached and accompany the climber on his way up. They won't do anything else except for continue to be creepy. The 40th step has a Malfera. So once the players step on it, a silvery puff of smoke will come out of it, and a Malfera will appear. Now, some of you may not know what a Malfera is. A Malfera is a foul creature summoned from the dimension of nightmares, and it's actually a pretty... It's an intelligent creature. It's a demonic creature, and it has like an armor class of 3, 9 hit dice, and it's pretty... It's not really disgusting for the levels we're talking about, but it's a semi-difficult encounter if you're stuck on a set of stairs fighting this thing. Now, the Malfera is kind of stuck on this because he's been kind of stuck in a deal where he has to kill 66 people on this step before he can go back to his plane, so you can't really deal with this guy. I mean, you possibly could, but he has to kill 66 people, and he's only killed 17 so far, so I guess if you throw enough villagers at him, you can appease him, but that's not what's supposed to happen. On the 44th step, the players will end up finding like a ivory tube. This will actually have a wand of lightning bolts inside of it that was dropped by one of the previous adventurers that tried to make it up to the tomb or make it to the top of the endless stair, but the Malfera got him. On the 69th step, the players will be hit by a magical gale wind. The players will have to make a save, otherwise be knocked down 69 feet. On the 112th, the players will be confronted by the appearance of a beautiful human woman of mature years, clad in robes, in which case she will tell them, You have come to the seat of power where the Chairmar sits in vigil. You have not the key. You are not welcome here. Please leave, and you will not suffer harm. This is just an illusion. It's like a set illusion. It doesn't do anything. You can't get rid of it. It just shows up every single time somebody steps on it. Now, this thing, if it hasn't been figured out yet, points out the most powerful item the players are going to discover here, which is the Chair of Power. The Chair of Power is a ridiculously powerful magical item that the players will be able to sit on that has a whole bunch of effects. I'll get to it when we finally get to that section. Now, on the 200th, 202nd, and 204th, the players will run into this thing called a Guardian Hand. The Guardian Hand appears to be it appears to be a hand that is artificial, and this thing has an armor class of 1 or 2, depending on if you're trying to destroy a finger or the hand itself. And it shoots beams of light from an eye in the middle of it. It also has the ability to corrode armor and weapons if it gets a hold of something like that, like if it gets a hold of a player's weapon or if it's holding onto the arm as it's trying to shoot it with its rays of death. And each hand is supposed to have the hit dice of its creator, and each of these hands was made by the Chairmar, and the Chairmar has 27 hit dice, or had 27 hit dice when he created these things. So these are 27 hit die armor class 2 or 1 creatures that can destroy armor and shoot laser beams from their eye. Now, the laser beams don't do that much. It's only like 1 to 6 points of damage. But, no, I take that back. It only does 1 to 6 points of damage if it punches somebody. However, if it shoots you with the rays, each finger has its own special effect. If it's shot with the forefinger, it's an energy drain. If it's shot with the long finger, otherwise known as the middle finger, it's a fiery beam. The ring finger causes paralysis, and the baby finger, also known as the pinky, causes whirlwind. These things are going to be a complete pain in the ass to deal with. Oh, and they levitate, so you can't just knock them off the stairs. And the energy drain attack it has with the forefinger, it has a 46% chance of draining a memorized spell, a 22% chance of draining charges from magical items, another 20% to cause the loss of 12 hit points, or 10% to cause the loss of 4 hit points and cause the player to faint. Like I said, these things are an absolute pain in the butt. But once the players get past that, the next step that's going to cause a problem for them is going to be the 229th, where a symbol of spell loss will glow upon this step when any spellcaster, and a spellcaster only, steps upon it. And 1 memorized spell, chosen at random, will be forgotten by the spellcaster, with no saving throws allowed. And finally, the last step, the 300th step. The 300th step, if the players actually step on, will reveal a doorway. However, if they're doing some sort of stuff where they're like skipping steps to try and get up faster, if they skip over the 300th step, they will actually be teleported instantaneously to the, the 137th? Well, it's the 131st step, which gives the illusion of it's an endless stair, because if they're not paying attention and they just step through it or they skip over it, the stairs just keep on going, or it seems like it keeps on going because they wouldn't realize they're being teleported back to the 131st step. Should they open this door, actually open it, not try and step through it without opening it or anything else, should they make the attempt to open this illusionary door, they will be in the actual tomb of the Chairmar, which is where the Endless Stair is located. This map has even less numbered locations. There's only 9. And this is also the location where the 2 apprentices are gonna they're gonna give their full effort to take out the players at this point as they try and seize all of the old wizard's power, knowledge, and the Chair of Power. This entire section is obviously written as, it shows that this place was where the Chairmar lived and did all of his research. There's a skull wraith at 1. This thing won't actually attack anybody unless somebody attacks it. Actually, it won't even attack you if you attack it. It kind of follows the players around as like a guide telling the players what's going on. And there's also some set monologues he says once players reach certain locations in this on this map. He's at point one, which is pretty much where the players walk in. He follows around like some sort of butler. Number two lies a handsome tall man with flowing white hair and a beard and a craggy, weathered face, apparently asleep along a stone block that is 7 foot long by 4 feet high and 4 feet across. Clad in robes of purple, his hands are clasped across his abdomen and there are brass rings on his finger. This is the illusion of what the Cheramar. This is what he used to look like. It cannot be dispelled by touch, and it covers a bare, featureless stone lid. This is the actual casket tomb of Cheramar. If the players actually lift the tomb lid, they'll find the Cheramar's skeleton inside of it. There's not really anything magical or awesome inside there. It's just his corpse. 3A is a 5 foot high stone plinth topped with a little bowl shaped depression. In the hollow sits a 1 foot diameter glass sphere. This is the control sphere for 3B. 3B itself is a huge 20-foot diameter glass sphere that is filled with what seems to be some sort of lime green smoke kind of swirling around in it. At this point, the Skull Wraith will tell you, hey, you may not want to mess with that. That thing's very bad. What's inside of there that the Cheramar has, sort of, he's imprisoned inside of this thing, is a thing called a magic eater. Wait, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. It's called an Eater of Magic. Now, Eaters of Magic are only 7-hit die, armor class 10 creatures. However, they can't be hurt by magical effects at all. In fact, if any magic cast at them actually heals them, they will also go directly towards the highest concentration of magic in their area, where then they will begin to absorb the magical spells, abilities, and charges of magical items carried by the individual. Fire does do normal damage to an Eater of Magic, along with physical attacks. In fact, it doesn't do any actual damage. It sort of just envelops the creature it's trying to absorb the magic off of, and then that's it. It drains them all of their magical abilities and everything else, and then just leaves. Physical attacks don't phase it. It'll damage it, but it doesn't really care about being hit. The only thing it cares about is eating magic. Section 4 is pretty much the Cheramar's laboratory when he was alive. It's full of jars and bottles and experimental ingredients of various sorts. In the description, it encourages the DM to introduce artifacts, maps, or unique items leading to further adventures in their own campaign. Number 5 has a table of plenty in it, which is, this room was apparently where the Cheramar lived, as others do. The table makes up to 3 meals a day for up to 4 people. There's some funny little effects that go on here, like the chair that is actually pulled up to the table actually turns into dust and splinters if it's sat upon. There's not much else in here. 6 is the Cheramar's wardrobe, where players can find maybe a couple robes that one would expect a high-level wizard to wear. 7 is the Cheramar's library. This is where some of the most important things are going to be found for your players. There is, it looks to be 5 separate books of magic in here. These are supposed to be some pretty important magical books. It has what each one of the books are. You have Splecter's Conjurations, Masteries, and Summonings, Nadrit's Tomb of Wonders, Fanalin's Phantasmagorica, Azteller's Book of Mighty Spells, the Book of Dulzaban the Dread. Each one of these, it actually has, for each one of these entries, it has a series of spells that players could find inside of these books to add to their own spell books, along with a description of what they look like. Now, number 8, this is the number 1 room. This is the big room. This has the Seat of Power itself inside of it. The Seat of Power is a lesser artifact, apparently created by some unknown immortal who also made the stairs. Ancient tombs named the immortal as Cheros. Thus, the guardian of the chair is called the Cheromar, which is how this guy got his name, apparently. To be used, the seat must be sat upon. There's only room for one being to be sitting on the seat. And when using the magical effects of the seat, it operates at the 40th level, and it saves as a 36th level fighter. Now, as the player, anybody who sits on the chair has access to the powers available to the anybody who sits in the chair has the powers of the chair itself. The player will not be able to use his own eyes. He goes into a trance. However, he uses a ruin eye to look around and do everything else. An anti-magic shell will also fill the entire chamber the second someone sits upon it, thus protecting the person in the chair from magical attacks. The seat's powers, which only can be used once per round. You can only use one of the powers per round. The first one's Dispel Magic. The second one's Meteor Storm. Second one's Curse. You can also teleport. You can create any monster with this thing. You can reverse gravity. You can heal, remove curse, prismatic wall. And when they're in the seat, the range doesn't matter. You're using the range from where the ruin eye is seeing. So pretty much anyone who is operating the chair has the ability to conjure whatever monster they want to. They can cause a meteor storm to go somewhere else. They can dispel magic at any distance as long as they can see it. They can heal people. It makes you almost like a mini godling while you're in this chair. One of the biggest counters for the power available in this chair is that Eater of Magic in the other room. Should the Eater of Magic be released from its area, it can actually eat or destroy this chair, which would be useful. I mean, if the players end up losing or they end up losing the fight towards Zelozel and Thakun, and one of them gets into the chair, it may be a good idea to release the Eater of Magic. It will destroy the chair and then just leave the apprentice for the players to deal with, but it's sort of like a backup option, the nuclear option. Now, like I said, Zelzel and Lethkun will make this will be the big fight for them. The big fight's supposed to happen in this area. One of them will try and make a rush for the chair, and should they get in the chair, the first thing either one of them is going to do is they're going to eliminate the other one. Because each of them fully believes their biggest opponent is going to be each other. But that's the adventure. I mean, it doesn't. If you don't use Lethkun and Zelazel correctly, it's pretty boring. But if you do, it makes it sort of interesting. I don't find this adventure that impressive. And the amount of power that a player can get by getting the chair is absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, if your players want that and they have to have access to it, or if you have to deal with like a super big bad that's about to destroy the world, this may be the answer to the player's problems. With that, I'm going to rate this adventure. For the adventure rating, I'm not going to rate it highly. It's only getting a 2. I mean, it's 2 small dungeons along with some traveling that goes along. Well, 3, I guess, if you include the map that's included for the end. That's not really an adventure unless you make it become an adventure. As for value, I'm going to go ahead and give this a 4. The print-on-demand copy can be obtained from DM's Guild right now for $5.50, which includes the PDF too. So you'll be able to get the book along with the PDF for $5.50. If it was like $13, $14, it's not really worth that. I can't complain about $5.50 for the print-on-demand copy, though. As for deadliness, it's going to get a 3. Because it all depends on how you as the DM are going to run it. It pretty much hinges on the DM to make it an adventure, really. So yeah, I mean, you can make it deadly. The stairs are an absolute pain in the butt. It's the hands, the disembodied hands are an absolute dick move. Throw in some flying gargoyles messing with the players every now and then. They should be able to deal with it, but still it's sort of an annoyance. And then to top it all off, when they finally reach the top of the stairs, they're going to have to fight those 2 wizards that are like levels 24 and 22. It can be deadly, but I'm going to give it a 3. 3 for deadliness. And with that, that covers my review of this adventure. I hope it helps somebody out there, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.